Rabbits, it's Trixie, and sometimes we use the strangest sayings without knowing their actual origins. Many of the background stories are very funny, others are pretty boring, and some are seriously terrifying. This video is going to deal with the latter. Popular and very common German phrases for daily life situations that have unexpectedly brutal, gruesome, or tragical origins. So are you ready to see 10 German expressions that you may use on a regular basis in a completely different light? Then what are we waiting for? Here they are. Let's start with Hand und Fuß haben, literally meaning that something has hand and foot. This saying is used to express that something is working out the way it's supposed to. Something makes sense. Doesn't sound brutal or negative in any way, right? Well, here comes the ugly truth. This proverb originated in the medieval ages. Like today, most people were right-handed, and they mounted their horses using their left foot first. For this reason, it was a common measure to punish criminals by chopping off their right hand and the left foot, leaving them crippled and helpless. So still having a complete set of limbs and having both a right hand and a left foot meant that you were a peaceful and well-behaving citizen. You were working the way you were supposed to. You were making sense inside of the community. And this is how the saying was born. Congrats, because so far no one chopped off your body parts. You have hand and foot. You must be a cool person. Next up, da wird ja der Hund in der Pfanne verrückt. The dog goes crazy in the frying pan. A saying that many Germans use when something is completely unbelievable. Something that surprises or upsets you. And before I got to know where this saying comes from, I actually found it pretty cute. I thought it was one of those amusing nonsense sayings like, ich glaub mich knutscht ein Elch. I believe a moose is kissing me. You know, for something unbelievable happening. But in fact, the proverb has a very dark origin. It is based on one of the many German folklore stories about the trickster Till Eulenspiegel. In this particular one, Till works in a brewery. At some point, the master brewer tells Till to brew beer and to thoroughly boil the hop. Den Hopfen sieden, which is exactly what Eulenspiegel does. Only that, coincidentally, the master brewer's dog is called Hopf as well. So Till ends up throwing the dog into the brewing kettle, where he then dies a gruesome death, going crazy from pain while, analogous quote, the skin and flesh come off its bones in the boiling hot water. I don't want to refer to a dog painfully dying when I'm talking about something unbelievable. That could be anything. But at least it's just a story, I guess. So this never actually happened. Happy puppies on a comfy couch, lots of pillows. Let's move on. The next saying sounds completely harmless again. Etwas hinter die Ohren schreiben. To write something behind your ears. You want yourself or somebody else to be sure to remember something. And again, this dates back to medieval ages. Since many people did not know how to read and write, they took their children with them when important matters were discussed, when deals or contracts were made. To make sure that the children remembered what the two parties agreed on and would therefore serve as witnesses in case of doubt, they received a strong slap in the face, hitting their ears, turning them red whenever something important was decided. I didn't know that before. Definitely not the kind of parenting advice I would give to my friends. So yeah, the saying schreib dir das hinter die Ohren has a pretty mean and violent background. But at least concerning the origin, no one died this time. So let's talk about the next one. I'm pretty sure that many of you know this phrase. Die Daumen drücken is the German version of to keep the fingers crossed for somebody. It literally means to press your thumbs for somebody. And I know what you must be thinking. Seriously? An expression that is used to wishing somebody luck is related to something gruesome? Well, yeah. Kinda. Many different sources say that the phrase jemandem die Daumen drücken is related to the gladiatorial games. When a fighter was defeated and yet alive, the audience had the right to decide whether they wanted him to be killed or his life to be spared, by raising their hands with the thumbs inside of their fists, so pressing the thumb with the other fingers, they indicated that they were willing to grant the fighter mercy. So, ich drücke dir die Daumen, I'm pressing my thumbs for you, basically means, hey, I hope that you don't die a painful death today. Thanks. Taking this dramatic background into consideration, pressing your thumbs for somebody is a very kind thing to do. You really like somebody, so you want him or her to stay alive as long as possible. But what if you dislike a person. There is another expression that fits on this list for exactly this kind of person, your arch enemies. You can say sich Spinne Feind sein, to be spider hostile with somebody, which really means that you hate somebody's guts. What? Now I bet that for some people the fact that this word is a combination out of spider and enemy seems enough already to count as expression with a disgusting and horrible origin. But it goes even further. The reason why people started using this expression is that some species of spider eat members of their own kind to survive. They are into cannibalism, so to speak. So by using this phrase, you're practically saying, I hate you so much I want to bite your skin off. Tasty! Talking about biting into something, what about ins Gras beißen? To bite into grass. This means to die. Or the English equivalent, to bite the dust, I guess. This expression has a military background. It derives from times of war and is actually very sad. Imagine defeated soldiers lying on the ground, lethally wounded but still breathing. While horribly suffering, they often literally bit into the grass because they were in so much pain. So I don't think I have to explain why this saying made it onto my list. It is truly gruesome. And since I know about this origin, it seriously gives me the chills. So call me a fool, but I stopped using it. Fool is a good keyword though, leading me to the next phrase. Jemanden an der Nase herumführen, to lead somebody around by the nose, means to fool somebody. This time it's not related to medieval torture methods or war, but animal cruelty. So-called Tierbändiger, animal tamers, used to pull rings through the noses of bears. They then attached heavy chains or metal bars to them, literally leading them around by the nose and punishing them whenever they disobeyed by pulling strongly. Since the nose is very sensitive and the rings caused the bears the most horrendous pain, the tamers were able to make them do whatever they wanted. So they used this method to train wild animals for circus shows and entertaining performances. When I hear stories like this, I simply want to shut every curtain in my house to not hear or see anything of this world anymore. I would literally be weg vom Fenster, away from the window. And no, I did not only say that because I desperately needed a transition for the next phrase. Weg vom Fenster is only coincidentally another saying that also belongs on this list. As I said, it translates to be away from the window, which means that you are out of the game, you're out of the picture. Attention, sad story incoming. Weg vom Fenster is most likely based on the miserable life and torment of people that worked as miners back in the day. Due to their hard work and the horrible work conditions, they often suffered from something called Staublunge, literally meaning dust lung. When they got older, their lungs became so weak that they couldn't work anymore, usually ending up spending their remaining time stuck in their houses, often sitting next to an open window to get as much fresh air as possible. Day by day, the people walking by could see their ghostly silhouettes, and whenever one of them disappeared, it quite certainly meant that he or she died. So being weg vom Fenster, away from the window, basically means to die in agony after a life full of misery. This is so depressing! If you're German, it's quite likely that you used or at least heard the following phrase. Du kannst mir mal den Buckel runterrutschen. It means something like piss off or beat it. And considering that der Buckel is a German word for a humpback, it's easy to think that the literal translation is similar to just slide down my humpback, alright? Well, only that the Buckel mentioned here is not actually referring to a person's back. In fact, der Buckel is also the German name for a shield boss. Der Schildbuckel, a piece of metal at the center of a shield. Its purpose is to make an enemy get stuck with his heavy armor on it, granting the carrier of the shield an opportunity to ram his spear into the opponent's body. After that, the fighter literally slid down the shield boss. He slid down the Buckel. So instead of piggyback gone wrong, we are dealing with a horrifying scene of war here, which makes this harmless sounding saying quite a bit more uncomfortable to use. Last but not least, nur Bahnhof verstehen, to understand nothing but train station. This phrase is used to imply that you understand nothing. Similar to the English, it's all Greek to me. And I know what you must be thinking. Really, Trixie? What could be so terrifying about train stations? Aren't they the most boring place ever? But again, the origin of this expression takes us back to times of war. More precisely, the First World War. Endlessly tired and both physically and emotionally scarred for life from fighting, the only thing that German soldiers dreamed of was going home. Finally leaving the war zone in a train. There was no other topic that they wanted or were able to talk about anymore. So whenever somebody came and spoke to them about something else, they barely listened and eventually admitted, "Ich verstehe nur Bahnhof." No matter what you say, the only thing I hear is Bahnhof. So whenever you use this phrase, you're unknowingly referring back to the desperate situation of war-weary soldiers dreaming of home. I myself used this saying so many times in the most redundant situations, and knowing about this tragical background story now makes me feel kind of bad about that. So how do you feel now that you got to know about all these sad and horrifying origins? Will you also stop using some of the expressions I mentioned? Or would you say that all of these dramatic stories lie in the past and we should get over it? And regardless of the language, do you know other words or sayings that have origins that really surprised you? Be it because they are funny, weird, or even terrifying. I would really like to know more about them, so please share them in the comments and let me know what you think. Alright rabbits, I'm a bit sorry because today's video was pretty depressing rather than funny as usual. Still, I feel it's important to talk about these things sometimes. We use sayings all the time without actually thinking about where they come from. So researching at least opened my eyes a bit, and I will be more careful about what I say in the future, I guess. I don't mean that we have to be super cautious, restricting ourselves in which expressions we use just because centuries ago something horrible happened. But knowing these stories cannot harm. And it teaches you once more that languages are fascinating. That there is so much to discover, so much that we don't know. Treasure chests everywhere. So grab your language shovels and start digging. Even though it was a bit sad, I still hope that you enjoyed today's video. If so, please leave a thumbs up because that would make me really happy. As always, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and here is another video that you should definitely check out as well. Subscribe to Don't Trust the Rabbit for more videos like this one, more cheerful ones though. And if you want to support my channel a little bit more, you can also find me on Patreon. I would really appreciate your help. Now I wish you all a wonderful day. I'll keep my thumbs pressed for all of you and see you in the next video. Bye!